Welcome to Creating a We-Based Society, an imperative for survival. And I'm so excited to see all kinds of interesting folks who are joining this. And I want to let you know that this is streaming live on the World Unity Week Facebook page, which is facebook.com/World Unity Week. It's also streaming live on We the World's Facebook page, which is facebook.com/The Week Campaign. And so if you're watching this on either of those Facebook pages or another one, please share it to your friends and networks. I also want to say many thanks to Ben Bowler, John Raymer, and so many others who have hardly been getting any sleep whatsoever to make World Unity Week as incredible as it has been so far. My name is Rick Ulfik, and I'm founder of We the World and the We campaign at we.net. And I am a co-creator of 11 Days of Global Unity, which we will be talking about today. As you can see, we are joined by many of the remarkable coordinators of We the World's 11 campaigns for change, including Shannon Crossbear, Sue Blythe, Kathryn Davis, and many other folks. So we will be hearing from them shortly. Now is the time for We. And this is the title of a 2-minute video that I'd like to play for you about We the World and the We campaign to get us into our discussion about creating a we-based society. It is narrated by Desmond Tutu and Jane Goodall. And I'm going to share the screen.
The objective of the organization We the World is to facilitate cooperation on a global scale amongst groups and individuals dedicated to implementing solutions to the many challenges we face on the planet at this time. We the World wishes to inspire, inform, and involve more and more people in these solutions to bring about large-scale change.
Isn't it time we sing out as one?
We are in this together.
You have gifts that I don't have, and I have gifts that you don't have.
It's already begun. Now is the time that we help the world.
15 of whom are dying every minute from hunger and disease, melting so much faster than scientists had expected. The world spends $2 million per minute on militarism and war.
It's time for a shift. We together can make a major change, the kind of change that we must see. Now is the time for we.
Now is the time for We the World.
I hope that everyone can join with We the World, because it's when we all get together that we will make the changes that we must make. We are the world.
Now is the time.
Thank you, Desmond Tutu and Jane Goodall. For me, the twin pandemics of COVID-19 and racism that have been inflaming communities across the US and globally have made it clear that our collective well-being depends on the well-being of each and every member of our society. That is the essence of a we-based culture. and I'm including non-human members of our society as well. We can no longer afford to live in a me-based society where people's actions are not considerate of the consequences for others, human and non-human. So how can we achieve this shift in our culture? Well, as we move from World Unity Week in June now to September, with the Caravan of Unity, We the World offers 11 days of global unity and our 11 campaigns for change to expand collective awareness and action, culminating with Peace Weekend and the International Day of Peace, September 21st. I'd like to give you a little bit of background about 11 days of global unity. So I'm going to share the screen again. 11 Days of Global Unity started in 2004. We the World brought global partners together like Desmond Tutu, Jane Goodall, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Barbara Marx Hubbard, a long list of folks with 125 cities participating, the Million Voice Choir, singing in every time zone leading up to the launch on September 21st that took place in New York City, where we had live Jane Goodall and Marianne Williamson giving keynote addresses. And then every year since then, it's gotten bigger, and we've had as many as over 800 associated events around the world. Some of the things that we've done over the years with the 11 Days of Global Unity Telesummits series with people like Deepak and Eva Ensler and Ralph Nader and so many others participating in that. And some historic moments during 11 days. The center of the screen there, you can see that's Arun Gandhi, the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. And in 2006, we gave Arun Gandhi the Heart of Humanity Award for his family's 100th year of promoting nonviolence. And it was really incredible. And in fact, that year, Arun Gandhi made the 11 practices of satyagraha coincide with the 11 Days of Global Unity. And they're just amazing things that happen every year. But so there are some of them there. So I want to jump to 11 days in the present. And we just had our 15th anniversary. What we're doing now, I'm going to go to, yes, the Trello board, which is the convergence room that we're broadcasting from right now, which is the Caravan of Unity and Peace Weekend. We are adding resources to this room, and you'll see what I'm doing here. If you see where going to the resources that we're adding for 11 days, that'll be part of the Caravan of Unity and Peace Weekend. So here we have the 11 campaigns for change: unity, interdependence, environment, economic justice, health, children and youth, women, human rights, freedom, disarmament, and peace. And for each of these, there are action steps. And I'll just mention one that's appropriate now under the Freedom campaign. You'll see one of them here that says, end society's usage of incarceration as a substitute for properly addressing things like poverty, drug addiction, mental illness. And that's appropriate now because people are protesting in the US around the world about how people of color are being pushed into the criminal justice system at much higher rates than their percentages of the population. I'd like to bring in to talk about the 11 themes and what the plans are for moving towards the Caravan of Unity, and just in general about what it will take to create a we-based society. Let's go to Sue.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Thank you, Rick, and welcome to we, everybody. We are really excited to be part of this Global Unity Week. And as we head into looking forward to the 11 days of Global Unity, we are ending those 11 days on the International Day of Peace. And what I'd like to do is show you what it looks like for our little collaborative storytelling adventure that we're putting together that we hope will be ready for, we hope, yes, it's getting ready so that we can play on this road through 2020 together. And you see right now we're coming from the 100 days, 100-day countdown to the International Day of Peace. And it's going to the International Day of Peace in September on the 21st. And so each year, the United Nations Secretary General introduces the 100-day countdown. Last year's theme was Climate Action for Peace. And so we've spent a year putting together a wonderful project for Climate Action for Peace. And that is a course that we're starting in July with the University of Florida Extension. And we're really excited to see that coming together. We'll be taking all of these little characters on our journey through the year 2020, which will take us to the 11 days of global unity, and then to the United Nations 75th anniversary, where we will get help everyone to find their place in the Sustainable Development Goals. And those are 17 goals that have been set for the year 2030. So we're all going to be doing our little part today, day by day, so that we can have a more peaceful and with a more peaceful world with a better balance of nature than we have now. And so then the other is we're going all the way through to 2050. And that will be when we are gonna, in our storytelling, we are going to be drawing down all the excess CO2 so that we can have to reverse global warming. And we have some big goals that we're going to accomplish, and what the only way we can do that is working together. And so that's where we come from. What can I do as an individual to what can we do together that we can't do on our own? And what I love about We the World is the way it helps to unite and amplify the voices of all the people that are doing so much for the common good, and what I enjoy calling the network of networks in the movement of movements for a world that works for all. So it's really a joy for me to be working on this. My love is the Earth Charter, and kind of the bottom line of the whole document, which has values and principles for a sustainable future, is we are one human family and one Earth community with a common destiny. And so here we are learning how to live together on this small planet we call home.
Thank you, Sue. And this during World Unity Week now, there's an anniversary for the Earth Charter, isn't there?
That's right. June 29th is the anniversary, is the 20th anniversary of the Earth Charter. It was launched in the year 2000 After almost a decade of global consultation, about 5,000 people participated. Something that was new with the internet that was just becoming part of life in the 90s. And then, yeah, so we will be doing that. I'll tell you, we have a back on that page that I just showed you. It's called gardensofglobalunity.org. And if you'll go there, you can click on a button that will take you to a form that will take you through the closing or the last principle of the Earth Charter. And it says, we recognize that peace is the wholeness of right relationships with oneself, other persons, other life, Earth, and the larger whole of which all are a part. And so what we do is we ask you to reflect on that with us. It's a form where you can put in your thoughts about each of those. We will use those words, with your permission, as part of our collaborative storytelling adventure. And so we invite you to do that.
Okay, thank you. So now I see Shannon is back with us. And I had actually called on you earlier thinking that you were on. Would you like to tell folks who you are, comment on this idea about creating a we-based society, and maybe if you want, do a welcome for everyone based on your traditions, if you tell people about that as well.
Sure, thanks, Rick. Let me just get myself here. Chimigwech Manito Nokomis Mishnomish, Bayanab and Damas. I asked grandmothers and grandfathers to come look down upon their daughter, Wabago niece, and to welcome all my relatives that are here, and the ones that I've met and the ones I haven't quite met in this lifetime yet. So I think we really have an opportunity here in our ways. They always talk about this. I appreciate that, Rick, because in the traditions that I was taught, there are words that come before all other words. And those words that are spoken are ones that are of gratitude, of recognition, of acknowledgement of our relatives, human and non-human, of our children and our elders and our tree nations. And I just happen to be here sitting in the middle of the boreal forest right now. So just welcome to everybody, and referring to each one of you as my relatives. I think sometimes when we talk about changing, we have to change our language as well, from that I society to a we society that Rick and Sue were talking about. And this day has been just so full. And reflecting upon, I've always thought and been taught about we, meaning the collective, right? That all of us, all of life is connected and all of life is related. And so therefore, this whole idea of acknowledging and being present for the we. The we exists whether we acknowledge it or not. But once we acknowledge it, we can tap into the power of that. And so the couple of things I was thinking about today were, one of the things I thought about was just, I had a chance to listen to both Chief Orville Looking Horse and Chief Phil Lane today, and just listening to kind of both the ideas of the prophecies that we were told about this particular time in history, and that what will come will not be what has happened before. This is the time of mending the sacred hoop of humanity, and that means that all are involved in that process, right? So, and there's some, I mean, these past few days, all of the things that are happening now are an opportunity to actually step up to that and to really embrace it and to tell, as Sue was saying, to tell the new story, right? The story that's emerging based on being informed by the stories of the past. And so in order to get where we need to go, we have to know where we're at. And in order to know where we're at, we have to know where we've been. And so telling that story is so important. And in the country that they call the United States at this point in time, that story needs to be told in terms of what's happened with the indigenous people on this continent. And to be able to have the opportunity to elevate all voices, not just the voices of my particular community, but all voices in all communities, so that we can respond into a new way of being. So I'm excited about that. The way that people do that seems to be really varied, and that's great. One of the things that this particular week has shown, we've had World Water Day, we've had World Peace Day, we've had unity, we've had a special focus on the children and youth, and all of those things are happening at the same time. And that's the kind of energy that will propel us forward. Not will, is propelling us forward at this moment. So I'm just glad to be in the middle of the miracle. And each one of you will find your way to express yourself in this miracle. And we have some processes with the We campaign and the unity and the gardens to really help give people a pathway so that they can further contribute to the We society that we're building. So thanks.
Thank you, Shannon. Did you mention that you are part of the Ojibwe or?
Yeah, I'm a member of First Nations, Fort William First Nation, and that's Lake Superior Ojibwe. I'm here on the shores of Lake Superior, which is the largest freshwater source on the continent. There's only one lake in the world that is equal in size, and that lake is in Russia, Lake Balik. And these lakes were formed during the Ice Age, and so the grandfathers, the rocks that are here, the basalt region they call it, are so sacred and have so much knowledge. We've just been here a little time, us human beings, but these grandfathers have been here a long time. So they add to the energy of the place. And here we grow.
Here we grow. Thank you. And Kathryn, can we go to you? And love to hear your perspective on things. And please let people know who you are and what you've been doing. And if you want to talk about the health campaign that you're part of.
Thank you. Well, I am primarily a radio producer, a media producer. I do a show called Heart of Mind on WBAI, Pacifica Radio in New York City, 99.5 FM and WBAI.org. Also on the Progressive Radio Network, PRN.FM. And with the We organization, my focus primarily is health, though I have interest in all of the topics. I'm focusing in on health. And when I look at it from that perspective, I understand that when you begin to make that transition from me to we have to take into consideration the state of the me, because it's all of the me's together that are making the we. So if we have a part of our community that is suffering or that is has particular kinds of health challenges, then I think that that has to be part of the focus of the whole group, so that we can begin to lift up those members of our we that are in need of that healing and that nourishment. And I actually do see that in the world that we're living in right now. You were talking about the COVID-19 virus, and we're talking about the George Floyd tragedy leading into the movements to elevate Black lives. And so I see that connection when I realize that the larger quantity of people that are suffering from the virus are the people who are Black and brown and have many reasons to have to be vulnerable in that situation, including economics, including environment, including access to healthcare. So there's a weaving of everything into these topics that involve health. So for instance, a lot of people of color live in environments that are degraded, that are waste dumps or toxic dumps, or they're in communities where there's industries and there's a lot of pollution, or they live in food deserts where they don't have access to high quality food, and maybe the food that they have is poorly produced or has a really high toxic overload from pesticides because people can't afford organic food. So I see how all of these ideas flow into and are interdependent with the health issue. And this whole bundle, I can see how it's impacting the problems that we're facing right now. And so, but I'm also interested into the health of organizations, the health of systems, the health of government. And there's a lot of trouble that we're seeing with the police force and violence. So I've been around long enough that I actually remember community policing, and it was a much healthier community environment. And there was an intermingling with the actual people on the ground. It wasn't so toxic as it is now. And so I'm just seeing how health is a very expansive topic, but once it all converges, it can become a crisis that we're seeing in the world right now. So I'm looking at building those integration of understanding and providing people with resources to be able to heal themselves, heal each other, and information so that they can understand what the problems are. So for instance, with the COVID-19, you know, there were a lot of issues in the beginning with people just not even knowing how to treat someone. And because people were ending up in public hospitals, they were getting not the best knowledge in terms of what that care might be. So I just see it as a very broad perspective with the focus on health, but inclusive of all these other issues. So I see that as how we transform the we into the me into we, but also not to the exclusion of the we caring for the me.
Exactly. And yeah, and I'm glad that you started talking about that integration of all of these 11 themes and these 11 campaigns. So in a, like, you know, individual health and societal health are intimately connected, and there are so many ways that can that we can talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
yeah, so one way I think of it sometimes is like the 11 campaigns are like 11 spokes on a wheel, right? All of these things, and if humanity is trying to roll down the road using that wheel, if one of the areas, like environment, is not working that well, then the wheel is going to bump whenever it gets to the environment. And if human rights, when it gets there, if that's not universally accepted around the world, then humanity is going to bump when it gets there. And so these things are all interconnected. And I always like to say that It's also a subversive model in a sense, because people are drawn to specific areas like human rights or environment or disarmament, or any of them, youth, health, and but it's subversive because once you start getting involved and really taking a look at a particular area, you realize how it's connected to all the others. So ultimately, you realize that it's all about we, and we are one. So it's a way to integrate the whole thing. So I'd love to bring in another person here. Heidi, would you like to speak a little bit? And then maybe we'll go to Brielle on human rights. But Heidi is the coordinator of the Children and Youth campaign, and she has innovated for the last 8 years International Children's Month, which is what we're in right now. June is International Children's Month. You want to tell folks what's been going on? How has International Children's Month been manifested through World Unity Week and all the different things going on?
Well, thank you so much, Rick, and thank you to everybody who's spoken before me. We won. Yes, so I guess I'll start with our mission, which is love, care, and respect. Love, care, and respect of all the children of Earth. And the 8 years have been very interesting. They're thematic. Each year's been thematic. And this year, I'm happy to report we are seeing the highest amount of collaboration and unity ever. I've never seen such bountiful organizing and people coming together and putting aside their differences in the name of unity. It's exciting. Moving into we is exciting. Moving into one is absolutely paramount.
Exactly.
Watch the power of love move the oceans apart as we walk and dance and sing and grow and restructure and reinvent and come together into the new way. And with that, I love you, I thank you, I respect you, and I am complete. Thank you for letting me speak.
Can we go to you, Brielle, and talk about the Human Rights Campaign and your ideas about creating a we-based society as well?
Yep. So human rights has been an interest of mine academically for a few years until I had to go on medical leave about 2 years ago. But right now, we is letting me explore that more. And right now, all of we is working to get racial equity campaigns up. And on the human rights theme, I'm working on this now. Some of the ideas I have for it is to do a book club, open spaces, and to create a forum where the general public can come to talk about these issues. I think a lot of people don't know where to discuss what is going on. And of course, people of color are not the people that should be educating white people on this. We need to do our own homework. And this would allow people to have a space to come to educate themselves and be with other people who want to educate themselves. So hopefully this will be up and running soon, within the next week or two. And then I'm also looking to do a project revolving around refugees. And both of these work with the we-based society in terms of really moving away from the us versus them mentality, because both topics really are surrounded by that, and thinking about other people as different and not the same type of human is what causes a lot of the issues between people of color and white people and refugees needing to go to other countries, the country's not letting them in. And it's a lot of countries thinking about themselves and not the world as a whole, and how the people coming into their country could really benefit the country as a whole and the world as a whole. And we really just need to work on not worrying about how a situation can benefit us personally, but how it can benefit everyone in the situation.
Exactly. Thank you. And let's see. Ugoji, would you like to say a few words? You're kind of new to the We team, but you've been doing some very interesting work. Would you like to comment on creating a We-based society?
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak and also to join this society. I like the word we. In the world today, when we look around, there's so much unilateralism, which just says I. We need to be in a multilateralism needs to be very much at the forefront of society. I remember yesterday I watched the Security Council meeting on the situation in the Middle East, Israel and the annexation. And what came to my mind was the lack of multilateralism, the lack of we as a society. It is just so much what I want to do. In view of the social justice turmoil that is prevailing in the United States now, not just in the United States, but globally, I feel there's a need for a we-based society. We need to think about ourselves collectively. If I may quote Archbishop Desmond Tutu, when he says, Black liberation is an absolutely indispensable prerequisite to white liberation. Nobody will be free until we are all free. And also, as the late Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I believe we need to focus on to basically try to find solutions to the problems which the globe, I will not just say America, the United States, I will say the globe is facing with this racial justice conversation, which I feel that needs to happen. And above all, we need to go beyond and absolutely to do more. It's not a matter of sitting in our comfort zone and saying, well, it doesn't affect me, because eventually it will affect all of us. That's all I have to say.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And Heidi, do you want to jump off of that a bit? Since it looked like you were nodding your head quite a bit during what she was saying. What are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, freedom, of course, absolutely. Like, we clear the historical trauma of our Black relatives, and then we must clear the historical trauma of our Indigenous relations as well, right? Because we're going back to colonialism. Everyone, Deepak Chopra did this thing the other day where he mentioned that, and it was right on, everybody here in their DNA has carried either being somebody who was a predator or like some kind of slave mentality. So like a predator or a victim thing. And it's like, if we can determine, I did the clearing myself the other day because I wanted to see if it would work. Because every time I got up to speak or sing, I'd get so afraid. And I'm so tired of being afraid to use my voice when that's my gift. And so I was like, okay, God, show me how to get back into this thing. And I literally saw a through line back to colonialism of being the slave part, because you're not allowed to use your voice, right? When you are when you are owned by someone, you are not allowed to use your voice. And so I believe we all have this in us, right? Either this I'm going to be on top of you, or oh my God, they're on top of me. And so it's like, if we can all each take responsibility for the healing of this trauma, I think it's going to be huge. And the rise of our Indigenous relations, yes, absolutely. White people will not be free until everyone else is free as well, because it started with a slave mentality thing, this pyramid of top down, and everyone down here work for these people up here. But now we're unstoppable because we realize that it is our love that is fueling everything in the first place. So now we just switch our focus, right? Do the healing, do the work, don't be afraid, just get her done. And then we can lock arms as we move out of this pandemic, and how we're gonna, how we're gonna move out into the world with all of this. And the 11 campaigns for change, can I talk about our record for a quick second? Is that okay? Can I talk
Certainly, because you're doing quite a bit of interesting things during June, as not just International Children's Month, but go ahead about the We the World compilation.
Well, it's kind of like I like to use things to anchor. So I like to make things that can anchor what's happening for me in the future. And so the We the World album is 13 artists, 11 campaigns for change. And don't ask me why those are the numbers, but those are the numbers. And so each artist chose an organization and a theme to support with their work. And so it's a organization, artist, and humanitarian effort to help free up, right, each of these organizations and what they're a part of, and each of these themes, and inject into them, that thing of the long chopsticks. I think it was Shannon and I that were talking about it. Someone and I were talking about it, the long chopsticks, and the chopsticks are too long to get the food yourself, but you have a long enough chopstick to feed the person across the way from you. Yes. And so that is really something that we can do for each other, and then come up with, I would suggest coming up how we get a we-based society, come up with something that gets you working with other people that you feel inspired to create and inspired to work on. And even if you don't get paid, it doesn't matter. I do so many things where I don't get paid. Oh my gosh, but I do them because I love them. They inspire me. They get me out of bed in the morning, and I know at the end of the day, I did the best that I could do. And I think that's how we get a we-based society, is let people be themselves, create what they want to create, support each other, and then move into this September 21 thing. We have 100 days. Let's not drop the ball, we're going to keep it rolling through and have more programming. So International Children's Month and the We Children and Youth are organizing children and youth panels to continue on. They're going to keep interviewing adults and grown-ups across the planet and asking them questions about unity and peace and business and love and action. And then we've got this record, and we have concerts, and we have different things that are happening throughout the time to keep the momentum and the people coming to each other over beautiful music and the collaboration and the community boots in action. Like, even in your house, you can jump into these little waves that are happening here and meet people you could never meet if you were out at a Bon Jovi concert, or if you were out having dinner at Burger King. I mean, this is an opportune moment for us to meet each other and find out who's available to play with and what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And International Children's Month is turning into internationalchildren.world. And so we have workshops and all kinds of things. And I'm going to help facilitate the We 11 themes. Anybody's workshops and stuff they want to do, we're just going to bring it all to the table. So people have this plethora of things to help support them and inspire them while we move into this new way of being. Here's my 4-year-old behind me. Thank you.
Sure. So, Junahli, would you like to say a few words? And I'll just mention that Junahli has been a long time collaborator and supporter of We the World. Junahli on the board of We the World, is the vice chair of We the World since the beginning in 1998. and she has been an activist for her whole life. I recall hearing from you a few times, Junahli, that you were there in Washington, D.C. when Martin Luther King Jr. Made his incredible famous speech. Isn't that correct, Junahli? You were there, and you've been going strong all this time. Are you, I think you're muted. If you can unmute yourself. And so why don't you just say a few words about what we means to you, and just talk about your activism all this time and what's up for you now.
I would love to, but as a result of your introduction, I would like to excuse myself 1 minute to bring something to show on the screen.
Okay.
I think you can hear a siren from my speaker.
Yes,
I'll be right back. So sorry.
Okay. Okay. So let's go to Kathryn. Any comments you have on what's been happening, and then we'll come back to Junahli.
A few things have been going through my mind, my spirit, as everyone has been talking. And I think that there's, even though I'm very much engaged and excited about all that's taking place, I think that within this complex of we, there needs a space for the honest reactions, the honest grief that's happening in a lot of people's lives right now, and the very real challenges. What I find to be very difficult sometimes is to, when I talk to people, and even though I understand very much energetics and the energy of being well and the heart space, but when you have people who are looking at the world from the perspective of, say, being under someone's knee, it's hard to tell them to pray and to be heartfelt, because the problems are more real than that and more urgent than that. And so as I'm listening to this, there's a part of me that's feeling, I think, a piece of that grief that doesn't seem to I don't know how to navigate that and integrate that into what we're speaking of. Mm-hmm. And so part of building our network, I think, is for us to be able to hear the kinds of challenges and the kinds of horror that people have encountered in their lives, and to leave enough space to be able to open the door for people who maybe don't have that contribution. They just need to be held, or they just need, maybe a child needs to learn to feel safe, or a place to feel safe. So I just wanted to interject that that's really important. And as Ugoji was saying, we're going to, everyone's in that place. I think we've arrived there. We're actually in a very critical place. And so there's a part of me that wants to celebrate and be happy with what we're doing. And there's a part of me that is significantly in a state of grief over what's going on. So I just think that if we could make space for that and what we're doing, it would be to our benefit.
I couldn't agree more. It is so important to hear those voices that aren't heard. And in fact, I think that's the expression of that's coming through with all the protests going on around the world. Those voices that you're talking about have not been heard. And that's why it's so frustrating. Even in like Australia, the Aboriginals people are coming together to express that frustration in countries around the world. So so I share the grief that you're talking about, and I also think that at least there is the possibility that we're at a turning point. And if, no matter what, whether it is a substantial turning point or not, it's really important for us, our allies, and the expanded circles of caring and concern, love, care, and respect, as Heidi always says, those expanding circles, it's so important for us to emphasize that going forward. And so thank you, Kathryn. Junahli, are you able to show or talk about what you want to talk about? And then maybe we can go to Yvette, who I see joined us. And Yvette is working with the Freedom Campaign of We the World. So go ahead, Junahli.
I don't want to keep everybody wondering what I was going to show, but I do want to start with something else first, related to what Shannon said. I'm sure I'm only paraphrasing it, and I hope I'm doing it correctly, but that words of prayer need to precede all other words. And although I don't think I can be that eloquent, I just like to say a few things related to that before I say anything else. One is something I say constantly, which is I humbly surrender to my greatest good and the greatest good of all. And surrender is a very big part of my approach to the world and my experiences, at least presently. And the other thing is something somebody else said, an actor named Terrence Howard, who, I don't know, I don't see this in him when I watch him act or when I've heard him speak, but this is something he said. Everybody has this little piece of God in them, and that's what you talk to, except that first you let them see the part of God in you. So I just thought I'd share those two things. As far as what I got, not to keep you in suspense any longer, it's this button. I don't know if you can read it.
Yeah, can read it. Yes. The March for Jobs and Freedom.
I want you to see the, you see the date on the bottom?
I do see it, 1963.
August 28th.
Yeah, and I'll just mention that I did hear there's another one going to take place this year on that date. I don't know too many of the details, so I won't say much more about it.
Well, congratulations that you were there, and your life has been a continuous trajectory, being conscious of and working as much as you can for that arc of justice that MLK talked about, right?
It has been. I totally agree with you. Since I'm going after so many other speakers, I want to express my gratitude for being here and for hearing everybody and for your words. And I've taken so many of them in that even if I try to repeat them, it's not because you said them, it's because I connect with them. And that's a little beginning of me connecting with various people who are here.
Yeah.
So Sue mentioned the Earth Charter, the last piece of it, I believe. And I just love the idea of all those relationships you spoke of, Sue, beginning with relationship with self. I don't remember them all. I'm just going to do my best because I believe in it too. Relationship with others, relationship with other life forms, relationship with all plants, relationship with the earth, relationship with everything beyond the earth. And that's where relating starts, with ourself, and then all else follows. I think I took in what you said, even if I didn't repeat it precisely. I already mentioned what I took in from Shannon. With regard to what you said, Kathryn, your passion, I believe, or focus is health. I think you mentioned that, and its interconnection with so many other issues. My passion is climate change. I'm very afraid of extinction of all life on Earth, human, other animal life, and plant life. And that too, like you said, health connects with so many other issues. I'm sure you know how the terrible things going on in the planet affect poor people and people of color much more severely than they affect wealthier people and white people. And what you said, Rick, that people are drawn to a single issue, but it leads to an awareness of the connection. You're so right. I think what I said just reflected that. And I think what other people said have reflected that as well. What you said, Heidi, about, well, what you're working with, the International Children's Month, I've come to believe, partly through seeing what the children said in that film about climate change, children 12 and under, that if people are going to work to reverse climate change, and I mean people with the power and the money who tend to be controlling things today, it may have to start with children becoming aware of what needs to be done. And I intend to contribute some money to a school which is interested in that, in receiving this contribution. I think there will be some left after I die, I don't know. For the children in that school, in the upper part of the school, to study climate change and to become involved in it. I think we who favor climate change need to have a better understanding of all the industrialists and corporations and governments which seem to be acting in ways so counter to our survival. And I don't think there's any way to understand that except to hear their rationale for doing what they do. And that is a connection that I don't think has been made yet. And if it has, I mean, I know they can say they have to give money to their shareholders, et cetera, but there has to be something underneath that when they risk the lives of their own descendants by doing what they're doing and destroying the planet. Yeah, I see you agreeing with me, Heidi. So I definitely am very much in line with what you said. So to get a little separate for the moment. So I already mentioned my passion in climate change. One of the things I'm doing about it is what I just mentioned. I do think it affects many other areas where justice and equality. And as far as we goes, we isn't only, in my mind, connecting with each other and humans and people of different ethnicities, races, sexual orientations, etc. It's also seeing our connection with the plant life, or plant nation, as I think Shannon identified it, with all the minerals in the world, with all life. And that's how I see we, not just all the people of the world. And one of the things that bothers me is when people talk about going out into nature as though nature is someplace outside of us. Like, I think humans need to begin to see ourselves as one part of nature, and the rest of nature is another part of nature. It's the non-human part of nature, or as people call it, the other than human. So it's not that we go into nature, we're in it, we're of it, in my opinion. So I'll just wind up by saying a few other things. I have little miracles in my life and I'm grateful for them. And one of them is, I don't keep up with my emails, but I did see Rick's email about this event, which he sent yesterday, but I saw it today and I was able to be here. I consider that a little miracle and I'm grateful for it and I give thanks for it. I showed you a button that I have from, well over 50 years ago. And I think it's a miracle that I have it and it's in the shape that it is, which is readable. That's another little miracle that I'm grateful for. And the last thing I'm going to say with some trepidation, because it might not seem appropriate, but I just can't help observing it. Kathryn observed how we haven't spoke. I hope I'm not misquoting you, Kathryn, about the pain and the grief that many people are suffering, which we didn't address very much today, or other speakers didn't, and I haven't either. But I'd like to observe that all the speakers so far have been women, and the host is a man. And women in this world are suffering quite a bit too, in many, many, many places of the world, and are servants, and sometimes slaves. And that, in my mind, is another area of inequality that's very, very central to justice for all and equality for all. And I guess in talking about racial oppression, which is so serious and so blatant and so cruel and visible, I just wouldn't like this other form of prejudice and oppression to be overlooked or to be dismissed or trivialized, because I think it's also crucial to freedom for everyone. And I'll just quote from a poster I have on my wall, but I'm not technically proficient enough to show it to you. And the words on the poster are, "There can be no free men until there are free women." And I don't know to what extent I've reflected my focus on moving from me to we. I think I do want to add one last thing, because somebody said our change has to come from within, more than one person. And I think a key to the change we need, which would happen within, and I'm a former mental health clinician, so of course I look within, is a change to the attitude of compassion from what I see as a very ubiquitous attitude of contempt, including for the environment, but also for people and other life forms and people who are different, etc. And I would like to suggest that compassion begins with compassion for oneself, which I call inner empathy. It's not that I call it inner empathy. It has been called inner empathy. The person who called it inner empathy is named Alice Miller. I just couldn't find the source for it. And I believe that key, compassion, unconditional compassion, not for what people do. When people commit acts of cruelty, I don't suggest having compassion for them. I do wish we could recognize between each hurtful human, or inside each hurtful human, is probably a hurting human. And maybe we could have compassion for them, even if as we condemn their words or their behavior. I know that sounds either difficult or irrational, but that's just a belief of mine. And I believe that the empathy and the compassion that I'm suggesting is a starting point, begins with increasing awareness and consciousness and mindfulness. And I'm done. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Junahli. That was so wonderful to hear all of your thinking and everything that you spoke about. So I'd love to bring in Yvette Dubel. And do you want to reflect on anything you've heard, and also talk about, the idea of creating a we-based society? And in particular, a few people have talked about freedom, and you are interested in freedom, and you're working on that campaign of the 11 campaigns. And I think you have some interesting ideas for September with regard to that as well. So if you'd like to speak on these things, I and we would love to hear.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Well, the Campaign for Freedom. The first question that I am considering with the Campaign for Freedom and inviting other people to consider is, what are you doing with the freedom that you have, and how does your freedom relate to the freedom of others? Recently, I've been having conversations to look at September as an opportunity to build, to really model inclusion and to explore what the obstacles are to inclusion, because I believe that's very much connected to what we're doing with our personal freedom. And sort of building what Kathryn said about the grief and the pain. And one of the questions that's come up in a workshop that we're developing that I've asked people to think about is, why does race exist? I wrote a blog post about the problem with anti-racism. And it's like, you can't have within anti-racism is racism. So to create a solution based on a premise that we've not even explored, nobody's questioning race at all. And that race exists for a reason. It continues to exist because it serves a purpose. And we need to be honest about what that purpose is. I think that's why this has sparked Black Lives Matter and George Floyd's death has sparked something around the world because consistently throughout the African diaspora, wherever we are, there are some things that are very consistent. When you look at people of color and their experience, there are some consistencies. Defining us as people of color, why did that happen? And so we need, if we're going to build something new and build and model inclusion and what a we consciousness is, those are the kind of tough things that have to be dealt with and dismantled to build something new. But if we never question how our personal freedom is connected to those issues, racism isn't out there somewhere, it's in us. We bring that as an ingredient, as part of who we are. And so we have to explore what is within us. And if we're not questioning race and why it exists, then I don't know that we're fully doing that. So that's one of the big things. And so I've been reaching out to various organizations, and particularly organizations, sort of working with social justice related issues for people of color, including Native Americans. I'm interested in reaching out to the LGBTQ community. And we would like to have a panel discussion in September discussing things like this, how to move forward, because one of the things we found in doing systemic constellation workshops is it's very hard to get people to just be with what is, to be with the truth and the reality of what is. And recently, one of my colleagues was sharing with me that he felt that white fragility was really about the difficulty that white folks have with in recognizing and standing in the place where they are perceived or the persecutor or the bad guy, let's just say the bad guy. And at the same time, holding on to their self-regard and their personal integrity. And so my counterpoint to that was, well, why is that any different or any more difficult than a person of color who lives in a system that consistently affirms your inferiority, having to find a way to hold on to their personal regard and personal integrity. And so I think there is a place of, I'm not sure exactly how we get there, but we have to create some sort of safe, compassionate space for people to deal with the realities of that, how to untangle their identity from that if possible, and how do we begin to create a different kind of system, one that works for all of us, because that's really what's in the way of we consciousness. It's not, anyway, I don't want to get too far into that. And so anyway, so with September, we're looking to have a panel and also engage artists and filmmakers, because I really want people to start to envision and think about what the world looks like if we step up to the challenges that we're facing. Particularly, I love sci-fi. I really have been very disheartened by the obsession with dystopian sort of future projections. And so there has to be some sort of envisioning of, I think that white people can do this. It's totally possible. What does that look like? And maybe that's the kind of hope that we need. To imagine, like, are people willing to let go of whiteness? I mean, because that's really the fundamental question. The only reason that race exists was to distinguish who would be the haves and who would be the have-nots. White would be the haves, everybody else is a have-not. Are we willing to let go of that? I mean, that's sort of like a simple question. I'd love to see filmmakers and artists exploring those kinds of issues and that as a potential future. What happens if we step into a future where climate change is a problem that they faced in the past and we overcame it? How did we do that? And so I think there needs to be a different kind of thinking about all of this that's not so tied to anti whatever or pushing against whatever has been. We have to really look at how are we using our freedom to create the future that we want and deserve. And that's pretty much my mission right now.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so interesting you talk about that. We put together a panel called Be the Media. And we had some people who've been involved with media in various ways. And one person, I forget her complete name, it's something like Sandra Buffington, something like that. She is actually working specifically on that, working with script writers in Hollywood to come up with transformative scripts and transformative media that that do exactly what you were talking about. And of course, I think that is essential for us to have the transformation that we need, because I really feel that the messages of the media, especially the mainstream media, become the fabric of our culture. And so I don't think we can have a transformed society until we transform the media. But anyway, I'd love to open up the conversation to all of us now. And I did invite another person in named Elizabeth. I don't know if you want to make any comments, but if anyone has anything that they'd like to say in response to all the interesting things that we've been hearing up to this point, please raise your hand the old-fashioned way, like analog. And and then you can speak. Who would like to say something? We haven't heard from you, Sue, in a while. I'm calling on you, but if you don't want to speak, it's okay. But I know you have a lot to say, so.
I'm just thinking, you know, I'm with you, Yvette, that we have this story to tell. And it's such a positive, wonderful story that I think so many of us are living each day. And Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And so a lot of us are doing the best we can. And I think that if you focus on how people are living, you know, I put it always in terms of the Earth Charter. If we're living by these values and principles and putting our conscience into action, the story that we naturally evolves out of that is really quite glorious. And so that's the story that I stay in as much as I possibly can, and hope to model for people. And I think that's part of what We the World offers, is a platform where people who are living in this we consciousness can just share what that's like. And I think that if we can put it into, I'd love to see it be a movie, you know, that we can bring all of these little storybook characters together and tell a wonderful story and help everybody to find their place in the story, because we each have our own, but my goodness, we have a wonderful story together.
So I have to reveal something that a lot of people don't know, which is that We the World was originally a film concept. So I don't, a lot of people don't know this history, but and it goes way back to like 1995. I don't have to go into a lot of detail, but basically I thought that it would be really important for humanity to see in the form of a film how the world comes together to solve its problems. And I actually started working on a script with that idea in mind. And there is a almost complete script, about 100 pages of dialogue and scenes and all of these, you know, it's actually a fictional story plus a reality story. It's kind of a fusion of the two. And about 6 months or a year after working on it, I thought to myself, this shouldn't just be a film, this should actually be happening. Because it had a kind of a blueprint for how the world could come together, you know, and that's what the characters in the film was, that's what it was about. So at a certain point I said, oh, this really has to be happening. And at that point, I actually started the organization, We the World. So that was like about 2 years later, 1998. And then I was trying to do both at the same time, but it couldn't deal with it all. So I kind of put the film on the shelf. But who knows?
Well, that's Rick, that's why I came in here and said, hey, don't you want to do a welcome to we show? And yes. And so here it
There you
is.
go.
Later, we've got a story to tell. And I know that Heidi has a story, a musical. We're putting it to, Karen also has a musical that she does. Let's put all that together in our collaborative storytelling adventure and make it the most wonderful story. What fun we can have.
Exactly.
I
And
love it.
Kath-
Let's make the movie. Let's make the movie. We know all the people to make the movie. Let's make the
Yeah.
movie.
Oh,
I
maybe
say
we
yes.
can.
I'll be in
Let's
it
do
and
it.
I'll help you produce it. I have to leave.
Okay.
I love you
All
guys.
right.
Oh, you
Carry
have to
on your
go.
convo. Yeah, I gotta go teach.
Any last words?
I love you
I-
guys. I love you guys. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Heidi.
All right.
Thank you for
Love and
all
light, everybody.
the global
Bye.
wave of love and everything that you did. during,
Heidi, I sent you a little chat.
Ooh, I
Okay.
see you. I see you. I love
Okay.
you. Yes.
Thank you.
Share my phone number, Rick, with everybody here.
Okay, I will.
Okay. All right.
And-
More to
and-
come.
More
Thanks,
to come.
Heidi.
And
Bye.
Thank
And
you.
Kathryn, what would you like to say? And we don't have to stop exactly on the dot.
Okay, well, actually, what I
Done.
wanted to say, I knew about that story about you're wanting to do a movie, but I just wanted to say that you created a reality, which in some ways is a lot better than a movie. And sometimes when we really pay attention to that intent with the kind of commitment that you're bringing to us, that is a transformative event. So I guess we're the characters in your movie because this is the reality that you created.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Rick, I
Thank
would
you.
like to add that Yvette has a wonderful part of the story because in her world, there's a hotel infinity where there's room for everyone.
Ah, I
That's
love
great.
that. So, Elizabeth, I brought you in to the conversation, hearing all of what's been going on, and you're not really officially part of the We the World We team, but any comments that you'd like to make? This is your moment, and you're muted.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, there you go. We hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Aloha to all of you from Hawaii,
Oh, good.
where I am. Rick, you
Thank
seem
you.
to have done a beautiful job of bringing together a gorgeous array of women here.
Oh, that's the best part of what I do. No, but there are men.
I didn't realize I wasn't a member of this because I got an email notice for it. And when I tried to get in, I had to wait over an hour.
Sorry about that.
So I just got in on the tail end, and so I can't really comment except to say that I'm all for doing media in ways that grab people. And Sandra DeCastro Buffington is a friend of mine. She's a member of our Evolutionary Leaders Group.
Ah, perfect.
Very aware of all the wonderful stuff that she is doing with media, both globally and in Hollywood. And I've been a great promoter of news stories for a long time. I instigated a news story summit at Findhorn community in Scotland years ago that other people did all the organizing work for. It was just my brainstorm to get together the best storytellers in the world for the next phase of humanity. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an evolution biologist and futurist. An evolution biologist is really just a deep pastist. And I'm a deep pastist in order to be a good futurist. So I'm very much tracking human evolution at this point in which we shift finally from hostile competition to loving cooperation. It's the way that nature works. That Darwinian story was fine about youthful phases, and we've been living in a youthful phase competitive economy, and we are so ready to shift now on all levels from matter to spirit. We are all matter, energy, spirit beings, and we're really ready to make this shift. I like to think that the pandemic was a sole agreement to put ourselves on ice for a little while so that the planet could show us how fast she can recover. And so that we could get ourselves together and say, nah, we're not going back to that thing that they call normal because it was very abnormal. And we're ready to do the real thing for a real cooperative future. So thank you for giving me a minute at the end of what was obviously a wonderful meeting. And
Yeah.
more power to it. Here's to media and every other way that we can grab people.
Thank you, Yvette.
And Elizabeth, yeah. And did you want to say
Elizabeth,
something?
sorry.
Elizabeth, right.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something, Junahli, or you just want to say thank
I was about to leave because I need to go, but I'm so glad I got to hear Elizabeth. And I'm so sorry, Elizabeth, I said the wrong name. I think
No
what I'm
problem.
going, this pandemic has affected my brain to some extent.
you? And anyone else like to say anything before we finish
I
up?
gotta go, bye.
I know you have to.
I'll say something, Rick.
Okay,
Just
go ahead.
I
Shannon.
just, yeah, I just want to send us off with the thought that one of the things that I really appreciate in ceremony that we do is that the minute somebody comes for help, we call them by a relative term. So you become brother, sister, auntie, uncle, grandchild, all of those terms of relative to remind us that we're all related. And even, you know, all the other nations, we're just the human nation, the two-legged. But I think it's a powerful thing, and all of our closings, whether it be a circle or some other gathering that we have, the thing that we say is we're all related. And if we remember that we're all related, how do you treat your relatives, right? How do you treat the people that you love? And if everybody is a relative, then, and you care about them, then we treat them differently. And that's not to say, I just want to acknowledge, Kathryn, I want to acknowledge, because oftentimes we need to know that our pain is not only real, but it's valuable, because our pain is our pathway, and acknowledging our pain is our pathway to healing. And the most sacred of things that we have in order to contribute to our healing is the sacred water, the water of our tears. And so that doesn't take away from the beauty of the story, because we cry tears of sadness, but we also cry tears of joy, right? This is what happens to us. So I wish you joy and much happiness. And I'm so glad to be on this earth walk at this time with all of you. Blessings.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. So Ugoji, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to remind you about that program I spoke to you about, racial justice conversation.
Uh-huh.
The date has been fixed. It will be the 9th of July at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay.
And I hope you'll be able to participate.
Good. So maybe we will put that on the calendar and see what we can do to support it and participate.
Okay, thank you.
That's great.
I quite liked what the lady Yvette Dubel said.
Yes.
Maybe I could shout her, but she made 1 or 2 points which I thought were very important, and I'd like her to also speak on it.
Oh, you mean at this event that you're
yeah, it's going to be a virtual meeting just like this. So we're speaking about social racial justice, racial socialist. It will be a racial social conversation about what's going on.
Okay, that sounds good. Anyone else want to say anything, or shall we finish up here?
Rick?
Thank
A
you.
mosquito. My mosquito is getting me.
Oh my God. So I'll just say that if people would like to collaborate with We the World, just go to we.net. You can find out all the information there. And there's a link where if you want to collaborate as an individual and join the We team, or if you want to collaborate as an organization, you can go to we.net/partner, all lowercase. And thank you all. This has been really a fabulous conversation. And we will continue from here through the Caravan of Unity in September, 11 Days of Global Unity, September 11th through the 21st, Peace Weekend. So all of these things are ahead, and we're going to build up momentum from now through then and move into hopefully the mode of transformation on the planet. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. And it's all about we, right? This W. That's it. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.